In the heart of Toronto's gay village, 8 men, Skandaraj Navaratnam, Abdulbasir Faizi, Majid Kaihan, Sorush Mahmoudi, Dean Lisowick, Salim Essen, Andrew Kinsman, and Kirushna Kanagaratnam vanished without a trace. For years, the disappearances haunted the city, leaving families desperate for answers. Behind the mask of kindness stood Bruce McArthur, the cheerful gardener, beloved neighbor, and trusted friend. No one imagined that the man planting flowers in their yards was burying his victims beneath them. This is the chilling story of the gardener of death, a killer who hid among beauty and deceived an entire city. Toronto's church and Wellesley Village was a place where people felt safe to be themselves. The streets were alive with color, filled with small cafes, rainbow flags, and the sound of laughter from people who had built a community of acceptance and pride. But behind that warmth, a silent fear was growing. It began quietly, with one disappearance, then another, and then another. Men from the same neighborhood began vanishing, leaving no trace behind. At first, it seemed like coincidence. Maybe someone moved, maybe another left town. But soon the pattern was undeniable. Something sinister was happening. The first to disappear was Skandaraj Navaratnam, a friendly and well-known member of the community. He was last seen leaving a bar one night, never to return. His friends searched, posters were hung, but days turned into weeks, and there was no sign of him. Not long after, Abdulbasir Faizi, a devoted husband and father, also vanished under mysterious circumstances. Then came the disappearance of Majid Kaihan, a man who had struggled to rebuild his life in a new country. All 3 men were connected. They were part of the same community, shared similar backgrounds, and most importantly, all knew the church and Wellesley area well. Police investigated each case but could find no link between them. There were no witnesses, no signs of struggle, and no evidence to explain where they had gone. Families waited by their phones, hoping for news that never came. For years, these cases remained open, gathering dust in forgotten files. But in the village, people whispered. Some believed a predator was targeting men from the community. Others thought it was a coincidence, something that would eventually make sense. Time moved on, but the unease never faded. The city's lights shone bright. But for those who had lost loved ones, Toronto no longer felt safe. Flyers faded on telephone poles, rain washing away the faces of the missing. Every new disappearance reopened old wounds. As more men vanished, fear turned into anger. Activists and friends pushed the police to take action, to look deeper, to find the truth. But each investigation seemed to end the same way, with silence. Meanwhile, somewhere in the same city, the man responsible was living an ordinary life. He walked the same streets, shopped at the same stores, and blended into the background like anyone else. No one gave him a second glance. He appeared harmless, a kind, older man with a gentle smile, known for his gardening work around Toronto. To most, he was Bruce McArthur, the friendly landscaper who made flowers bloom and lawns beautiful. But beneath that quiet exterior, something dark was growing. As the years passed, Toronto's missing men became a haunting list of names, each one a reminder of lives cut short and questions left unanswered. No one knew it yet, but the city was living alongside one of the most chilling predators it would ever face. The story of the missing men was far from over. It was only beginning to reveal the monster hiding in plain sight. For years, Bruce McArthur lived like an invisible man among the people who trusted him most. He wasn't the kind of person anyone suspected of harm. A quiet gardener in his 60s, he had built a modest life tending to the flower beds and lawns of Toronto's most elegant homes. His clients adored him. They described him as reliable, polite, and even charming. No one imagined that the same hands that planted roses and trimmed hedges were burying the remains of his victims beneath the soil. McArthur's connection to the missing men was subtle, but real. Many of them had crossed paths with him through social gatherings, dating apps, or the close-knit community around church and Wellesley Village. He had an eye for those who were vulnerable, men new to the city, men with few close relatives, men who trusted easily. He offered warmth and friendship, often inviting them to spend time with him, promising companionship and understanding. But what started as innocent encounters soon turned deadly. Despite growing suspicion in the community, police struggled to find any leads. There were no fingerprints, no evidence of foul play, and no clear suspect. It seemed as though the missing men had vanished into thin air. For Bruce, that was the perfect disguise. He followed the news coverage, confident that his secret life was hidden beneath layers of normalcy. Every day he returned to his work, pruning trees, watering gardens, and smiling at neighbors, while his past victims lay buried only feet away from where he stood. By 2015, the case of the missing men had become one of the city's greatest mysteries. Families demanded answers. The LGBTQ+ community held vigils, their candles flickering against the dark uncertainty. But there was still no sign of the predator among them. McArthur watched from a distance, maintaining his calm, blending in like a shadow at the edge of the crowd. He had grown careful, methodical, and patient, traits that made him nearly impossible to catch. Then came new victims. Selim Esen, a quiet, poetic soul, vanished in April 2017. Just 2 months later, Andrew Kinsman, a beloved community volunteer, also disappeared. Unlike the others, Kinsman's case triggered alarm. He was well known, deeply loved, and had strong ties with many people. When his friends couldn't reach him, they knew something was terribly wrong. They searched his apartment and found a small note, a single name written in his calendar: Bruce. That name became the first crack in McArthur's perfect disguise. Investigators seized on the clue, connecting it to a man already known to police from a minor past incident: Bruce McArthur. His name had floated on the edge of previous inquiries, but without evidence, it had never gone further. Now, for the first time, the pieces were starting to form a pattern. Still, McArthur carried on as if nothing had changed. He continued working for his clients, watering plants and cutting lawns, never realizing that detectives were quietly watching. The predator who once hid in plain sight had finally left behind a trail, and it would soon lead police straight to his door. The investigation into Toronto's missing men had gone cold for years. Families had grown tired of unanswered calls and empty promises, yet detectives refused to close the files completely. By 2017, when Andrew Kinsman suddenly vanished, the city's fear reignited. Andrew wasn't someone who disappeared without warning. He had friends, routines, and responsibilities. When he stopped responding to messages, people knew something was wrong. Investigators visited his apartment and found signs of normal life: food in the fridge, clothes neatly folded, and his cat waiting to be fed. The only clue sat quietly in his calendar: one handwritten word: Bruce. That single name changed everything. Detectives began cross-referencing every man named Bruce connected to Kinsman. But one name immediately stood out: Bruce McArthur. He wasn't a stranger to the police. Years earlier, he had been questioned in a separate investigation, but had slipped through due to lack of evidence. Now his name was tied to another missing man. Investigators started digging deeper. They checked his background, his business, his clients, and his online activity. Everything seemed normal on the surface, but the more they looked, the stranger it became. McArthur's red van became the center of attention. Security cameras captured it parked near Kinsman's home on the day he disappeared. The footage didn't show much, but it was enough to raise alarm. Police couldn't arrest McArthur without concrete proof, so they placed him under surveillance. Weeks turned into months as investigators followed him, watching his every move. They noticed his odd routines: late-night trips, isolated jobs, and heavy equipment constantly moved from place to place. Each time he carried the same calm expression, as if nothing in the world could touch him. The investigation intensified when a new man went missing after being seen with McArthur. Detectives knew time was running out. They applied for a warrant and began quietly tracking his digital communications. What they found sent chills through the task force. McArthur's photos, stored on hidden drives, revealed scenes too horrifying to describe. Evidence of men who had vanished years before. The images proved what the police had feared all along. Toronto's missing men were victims of a serial killer, and Bruce McArthur was at the center of it. In January 2018, after weeks of preparation, police decided to act. They followed McArthur to his apartment one cold winter morning. He brought another man inside, and investigators realized they might be witnessing another attack in progress. They broke down the door and stormed in. Inside, they found a man restrained, terrified but alive. That single rescue ended Bruce McArthur's years-long killing spree. When they arrested him, the city erupted in disbelief. The man who had been trusted by neighbors, who had smiled through community events, was now revealed as one of Canada's most dangerous serial killers. For investigators, the discovery was both a victory and a horror. They had stopped him just in time, but the damage he had done stretched far beyond what anyone imagined. The truth about the missing men was finally about to come to light. After Bruce McArthur's arrest, police began one of the largest forensic investigations in Canadian history. His apartment became a crime scene that shocked even the most seasoned detectives. Every inch of the small space was carefully searched. Drawers, closets, computers, and tools. What they found inside was chilling. There were photographs of the victims before and after their deaths, stored on hidden drives and labeled with disturbing precision. Each file was evidence of another life taken, another man who had disappeared without a trace. But the photographs were only the beginning. Investigators turned their attention to McArthur's landscaping business, following the trail of properties where he had worked. They suspected he had used his job as a cover to hide evidence, but no one could have imagined what they were about to uncover. At one of his regular clients' homes, police found several large garden planters that appeared ordinary at first glance. But when forensic teams removed the soil and plants, they made a horrifying discovery. Human remains buried beneath the roots. One by one, more planters were found, each containing parts of the missing men. The crime scenes were hidden in plain sight, surrounded by the beauty McArthur had created. The flowers, bright and blooming, concealed a graveyard below. Neighbors who had once waved to him from their driveways were now speechless, unable to comprehend that their own gardens had been used to hide murder victims. Each planter told a story, not just of death, but of how easily evil can disguise itself as something ordinary. Forensic teams worked tirelessly through the freezing winter, collecting evidence from multiple locations. DNA testing confirmed the identities of several missing men, bringing closure to families who had been searching for years. The discoveries matched the timeline of disappearances that stretched back nearly a decade. Investigators pieced together McArthur's pattern. He targeted vulnerable men, gained their trust, and then struck when they were alone. He used his landscaping equipment to dispose of evidence, transporting soil and planters between job sites, confident that no one would question him. The community's grief turned into outrage. People struggled to understand how someone could commit such horrific acts while maintaining such a normal life. Clients who had hired McArthur were haunted by guilt and disbelief. Some couldn't bear to return to their homes, knowing what had been buried there. Others turned their gardens into memorials, replacing flowers with plaques honoring the victims. As police continued their search, they found more evidence: clothing, personal items, and digital records that detailed years of planning and concealment. McArthur had not acted in haste. He had built his crimes with methodical precision. The sheer scale of his deception stunned the nation. The headlines spread across Canada and the world, painting a portrait of a man who had hidden behind kindness and charm. Beneath his gentle smile was a calculating predator who turned beauty into a mask for horror. The gardens that once symbolized life and renewal now stood as silent witnesses to the depths of human evil. When Bruce McArthur finally stood before the court, the world watched in stunned silence. The man who had once been described as kind and reliable now faced the weight of 8 lives lost. The courtroom was filled with the families of the victims, friends, journalists, and members of the LGBTQ+ community who had lived in fear for years. Their pain was heavy, yet their determination to see justice was stronger. McArthur sat quietly, emotionless, as the prosecutor described how he had deceived, trapped, and murdered innocent men before burying them beneath layers of soil and flowers. The contrast between his gentle public image and the monstrous reality of his crimes made the case even harder to comprehend. The evidence against him was overwhelming. DNA, photographs, personal belongings, and witness testimonies painted a clear and horrifying picture. McArthur's calm confession came without remorse. He pleaded guilty to 8 counts of first-degree murder, sparing the families a long trial but offering no explanation for why he did it. His silence was chilling, as if the truth of his motives had died with the men he killed. Some believed he wanted control. Others thought it was a reflection of loneliness turned cruel. But no one could ever truly understand what drove him. The judge's words echoed through the courtroom as the sentence was read: life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years. The families wept quietly, not out of relief, but because no punishment could ever undo what had been done. Outside the courthouse, snow fell softly as reporters broadcast the story around the world. Toronto's gay village, once defined by its spirit of acceptance, was now forever linked to the crimes of a man who had hunted among its people. The aftermath of the case changed the city. Police procedures were re-examined, especially those involving missing persons from marginalized communities. The tragedy forced the authorities to confront the biases that had allowed McArthur to operate unnoticed for so long. New initiatives were launched to ensure that every disappearance, no matter how small, would be taken seriously. From that darkness, a determination for change began to grow. Memorials were built to honor the victims. Skandaraj Navaratnam, Abdulbasir Faizi, Majid Kaihan, Soroush Mahmoudi, Dean Lisowick, Selim Esen, Andrew Kinsman, and Kirushna Kanagaratnam. Each name was etched in stone, a reminder that their lives mattered, that their stories would not fade away. Families and friends gathered every year to light candles, turning pain into remembrance. The gardens that once hid the horror were replanted as symbols of healing. Flowers bloomed again, but this time, they carried meaning far deeper than beauty. They represented resilience, justice, and the power of truth. Bruce McArthur will spend the rest of his life behind bars, his freedom gone, his legacy defined by the evil he tried to hide. Yet the city he wounded continues to grow, stronger and wiser. The story of the Gardener of Death stands as a chilling reminder that darkness can exist behind even the kindest smile, but also as proof that truth, no matter how long it takes, will always find its way to light. The story of Bruce McArthur, the Gardener of Death, is a haunting reminder that evil often hides behind ordinary faces. For nearly a decade, he lived quietly among his victims, tending gardens, smiling at neighbors, and burying his dark secrets beneath the soil. His crimes shattered a community, but they also awakened a city to the importance of awareness, equality, and justice. The victims' names will forever stand as a tribute to those silenced too soon. If this story gripped you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more true crime documentaries. Your support helps keep these stories alive, because remembering is the first step toward justice.